the power of decision making even in the morning. So for example, when we wake up in the morning, right, the way that decision is applied is, what do I want to feel this day? What do I want to do this day? What do I want to have happen this day? What do I want to experience or give or share this day? And so if we can ask these questions and decide for what kind of day we want, what starts to happen is you start to see the power of this loving universe working with you and for you and through you to help bring this day to you if you do not interfere. Okay. So, hello, friends. I am Britney Shawley, and I am a spiritual therapist and a Course in Miracles teacher, and I have been for the last 15 years. It is really my purpose in life to help people learn how to transform their thinking from pain to joy and from fear to love. And so everything that I do, whether it is on my YouTube channel, whether it's in my personal therapeutic practice, or whether it's just having conversations with people that I met on the street, my goal is to always bring inspiration or insight or light to the situation to help people to really overcome the biggest difficulties that we can run into in our lives. And so in regards to that, I felt that it might be helpful to share a little bit of my story and what brought me to where I am, and why is it that I can even talk on these topics of inner transformation, which I believe ultimately extends to outer transformation, transformation in our relationships and in our societies and in our countries and in our world. And so I really believe that everything comes back to an internal perspective. And so I guess starting with my story of how I totally changed my perspective of myself and of my life and of our world would probably be a helpful context. So in regards to that, my story, I guess you can say, began when I was in my late teens. I had struggled for a very long time with my own form of addiction that I wouldn't even have called an addiction back then. It was just how I lived life. But my addiction, my choice of addiction was food. I was really addicted to food. I had binge eating issues. I struggled with just being overweight the majority of my young adult life. And yet it got to the point where my food was controlling me, and it was really dictating to me what to do and how to think. And everything was in secrecy and privacy, that I felt that I was living a lie and that people didn't really know me because I was hiding behind my addiction. And so I was at that time going to school to be a teacher. I wanted to make a difference in the only way that I thought that I knew how at that time, and that was to empower younger children. But the more that I was in the school system and going to university, the more that I realized I wanted to actually change the system and change how things operated on a bigger scale than just going and repeating facts to children. And so I started to feel this disconnect from where I was in life, a disconnection from myself, a disconnection from what I thought that I was to do here, a disconnection from my family. I had abusive boyfriends. Like, I was just in such a dark space, and I really couldn't see through the fog. And I feel like I was blessed with having my school go on strike for 16 weeks. I had the opportunity to contemplate these really, really big questions of, who am I and what am I here for? But the opening to contemplating these questions and ultimately receiving the answer was realizing that I did not know. I had no idea. And to be okay with that, not to think that meant that I was forever lost, never going to find the way, but that I just didn't know right now. And at that time, I was reading a book called Eat, Pray, Love. And most of you probably know that book, where Elizabeth Gilbert had her falling to the bathroom floor moment, where she fell to her knees and called to God, and God answered her. To me, that was a foreign idea because I did not believe in God. I did not believe in Jesus. I couldn't even say Jesus without feeling like, ugh, like all icked out. And so I guess you can say, a spiritual seeker at that time, because I was reading such like books such as Eat, Pray, Love, but I didn't have a belief system or a belief structure. I never grew up in church. I never had any friends surrounding me who were spiritual in that regard. I was just kind of myself, just trying to do the best I could in daily life. But when I read this part in Eat, Pray, Love, and she called to God and God answered her, the thought that I had was, if she can do it, maybe I could do it too. So I literally pushed all the candy wrappers off my bed, all the stuff that I had just stuffed my face with, and I fell to the floor and I crossed my legs and I closed my eyes and I called to the universe for the first time in my life. And the question that I asked was, what void am I trying to fill? And to my surprise, I heard an answer. And the answer was, you're afraid of failing. And I opened up my eyes. I'm like, afraid of failing at what? And I saw it. I saw the list. I was afraid of failing in the eyes of my parents. I was afraid of failing at school. I was afraid of failing with being healthy and having a life for myself, afraid of failing in relationships and purpose and everything. I was afraid of absolutely everything. And it was in that moment that I went, oh my God, my entire life is based on fear. I do not want to live this way anymore. I'm going to decide in this now moment that I'm going to live my life based on love. And I went to my journal and I wrote in my journal, God means something to me. I still didn't know what that something was, but it was something to me. And I had set the foundation of my goal now being love instead of fear. And so this was my first opening to first inner guidance, and also opening to this being an interactive universe, that as I ask, I receive. And so I kept that mentality of like, okay, well, if this voice is going to answer my questions of like, what void am I trying to fill? And I realized I'm trying to fill the void with fear. I then realized that, okay, maybe I can trust this voice. I'm going to try it on at least like an experiment. I don't really know. I don't really know, but let's see. And I just remained in that open space, trusting that the voice that answered me is going to be the voice that leads me to my next step. Within a week, I received the guidance of life coach, life coach, life coach. And I was like, okay, this was, 15 years ago. Nobody was a life coach. Like nobody knew what that meant. And I just felt that there was some sort of resonance in that. So I opened up to that idea. And my school resumed. I went back to finish my degree in English literature and psychology. And while I was finishing off that degree, I connected with someone in our online marketing course. And I helped to break up a dispute, people who were in a fight. And I did so, I guess, in a way that was helpful and kind and loving. And this man connected with me and he goes, hey, like, what are you here to do? Like, are you here to be a lawyer? Like, what are you going to school for? And I was like, well, actually, I thought I was going to be a teacher, but I really want to be a life coach. So I think that that's where I'm going to go. He goes, well, that's what you want to do. Here, come connect with me. And so I started to work with him as like my spiritual teacher, my spiritual guide for a bunch of months. And he first introduced me to the power of my mind. Right? That what I hold in my mind is the cause and the effect is in my experience. So if I want to change my experience, change my body, change my life, change my world, then I'm going to have to change my mind about my body and my life and myself and my world. And so he really put my attention to the cause. And the more I started to put my attention on the cause, I started to be like, okay, well, is it a life coaching thing that you would have me do? Where would you lead me? And the next place I was led was to hypnotherapy and neurolinguistics programming. Really, really dove into the understanding of the mind and having to undo and correct and heal things that are deep in the subconscious. And so I worked on myself for a long period of time with the focus that I'm going to do this so I can help others to heal along with me. So from the get-go, it was a giving and a receiving exchange, that as I teach, I'm going to learn. As I give, I'm going to receive. As I help, I'm going to be helped. As I love, I'm going to be loved. So this golden rule, as well as asking and receiving, became two most powerful weights in my thought system that were now guiding me on this new path. Okay. So the next step after this was realizing that, okay, because it's an ask and receive universe, maybe I need to start asking for bigger and bigger things. So this is leading me into like the next phase of what does this universe, God, have in store for me? And so the next big thing that I asked for was to put on a workshop in Hawaii. Okay. I was like, I'm going to put on a workshop in Hawaii. Me being now like early 20s, like trying to be an entrepreneur on my own, like really not having money or the means, but trusting the asking and receiving. Within 2 weeks of me putting up that call to God, to nobody else, but to our creator, I had someone reach out to me and asked me specifically if I wanted to put on a workshop in Hawaii. Yeah, of course I said yes, right? But I also said yes with the knowing that if I'm meant to be there, the means and the way and the money will show up for it to happen. And so I just kept piling stuff in an envelope until it was time to go. But it was time to go. I had what I needed in the envelope and it was time to go. And so the thing about my trip to Hawaii that was like next level transformative for me, and something that I want to highlight for people who hear my story, is that there is a greater plan involved and you are a part of this plan. And so when you surrender to that plan, even if you don't know what it is, you will be guided and led to every single step on your journey to lead you to where you need to go. You just have to have trust. So I had trust. So I went to Hawaii. And when I went there, I was actually there in 2010. So I was there during the week of October 10th, 2010. And for me at the time, being more spiritual, I was spoken to in numbers. Like when 10 showed up, that to me was confirmation of so many things. So when we were there on 10, 10, 10, we were open to the guidance of this day. We were open to what the significance of this was for us, for humanity. And so I sat in on a few spiritual calls, and I learned from some leaders in this space what their thoughts were for this time. And I just allowed myself to come into this space of inner listening, like I had done the first day when I was told that my life was based on fear and it needs to be on love. And this was my next decision point. And what came to me when I turned my mind inward to listen was a new presence and a new voice that I had not heard before. And that new presence and that new voice was that of Jesus. Jesus came to me and he told me that I am here, along with those who are on the call, to be an anchor of love and light on this planet, and that he will give me everything that I need to fulfill my mission in this lifetime. I didn't really know what that meant, but I knew that it meant something of magnitude. And so my first experience with Jesus ever, I said yes. I said yes. And I bawled, like cried my face off on the beach for a good 2 hours, like just anchoring in the yes to my mission, whatever that were to look like. So now I'm in the realm of having a higher guidance system, not just through what I've called and learned to be called like the Holy Spirit or our inner teacher. I now felt like I had the presence of Jesus on my life and that he was going to be guiding me, not a religious Jesus, but a direct personal relationship with Christ, which is the light that is a representative of love and only love. Okay, so now I have this with me. So when I went home after this experience, I was picked up by a guy that I was seeing at that time, a guy that I thought was my knight in shining armor. Yet when he showed up with his brand new car and brand new laptop and brand new suit, and I had just changed my mind about everything that meant anything to me, I was like, okay, there's an incongruency here. Like, this is not what I'm after anymore. Like, my mind is so radically changed about what I'm here for. I'm sorry, like this, I can't continue with this relationship. So I had to drop that relationship on a whim in the moment of being, in the faith and trust of this new experience that I had. And then I had my next turning point. My next turning point was when I fell to my knees again. And what I will come to communicate more as we continue to talk is how much I believe that prayer or asking is the medium of miracles. Asking and receiving is literally a law of God. So again, I'm asking, but this time I'm asking through gratitude and through a declaration of what I knew was mine as a soul, not as a body Britney personality, but as a soul, as a creation of the creator. And at this point, I fell to my knees and said, God, I am ready for the partner to help me mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, on every level of my being so I can help save the world. Big ask, I know, but the ask came from my soul, for my soul, and for the soul of humanity. So I was ready. And so what happened after that, everything happened very quick times at the beginning of my career. I've learned patience since. It's not always as fast, but it was for me at the time it needed to be. And so what happened then was within a week or two, I had my partner who's now my husband, who's the father of my baby, who is my committed partner in purpose and shared purpose in this life. He brought to me himself, but he also brought to me what is known as the A Course in Miracles. The sparkly edition of the Course in Miracles is the one he handed to me, and I'll show you. On the front, it says Jesus. So when he handed me this book and I look at this book and Jesus just told me he would give me everything that I need to heal on every level of my being so I can help save the world. And then I just asked for the partner who could do that with me. And then he brings me the book. I was like, there is no mistake that this is from him. Like, there's no mistake that this is what I'm here for. And then I opened it up. And in the use of terms, it talks about being here for the salvation of the world. And he asks us, are you ready to help me save the world yet? Do you think I fell to my knees crying again? Yeah, I did. You'd think I don't have any tears left with how much was coming out of me, but I was, and I did. And I said, yes, again, unequivocally now, not just to Jesus, not just to myself, but to my purpose and to my partner. And so what I realized through that whole dynamic, which has continued to be proven as accurate and trustworthy over these 15 years, is that the power of decision is my own. That when I make the decision for something, not, oh, I don't know, maybe I will say yes to you, Jesus. Maybe if you prove to me that this is correct. No, he wants us to unequivocally decide. The power of decision is my own. That's actually a lesson in A Course in Miracles, which points to the fact that when I make decisions with the light, with the love, which is not just for me selfishly, but for all beings, right? Whether that be my family, whether that be the city, whether that be the community, whether that be the world, like we've got to include other beings in it. My prayers will be answered if they're in accordance with what is the greatest good for me and for others. And so deciding for what we want ahead of time is everything. It is everything. I teach in my therapeutic practice that when you wake up every morning is an opportunity for you to decide how your day is going to go. Right? You have to just use the power of decision making even in the morning. So for example, when we wake up in the morning, right, the way that decision is applied is, what do I want to feel this day? What do I want to do this day? What do I want to have happen this day? What do I want to experience or give or share this day? And so if we can ask these questions and decide for what kind of day we want, what starts to happen is you start to see the power of this loving universe working with you and for you and through you to help bring this day to you if you do not interfere. Okay. And so what I started to learn many, many years ago is that when you make these powers of decision and you decide for these certain things that you want, and it's a non-negotiable that these are the things that you want, and you know that these things are aligned with your soul and the good for you and others, there's no way that God, the universe, is going to not help you make it happen. There's no way that you're not going to be supported to make it happen. We have to. That's cause and effect. It's how it works. So that was the beginning of my realization that I'm here for a purpose and not just for nothing. And that was the beginning of me realizing that healing happens in my mind and in the thoughts that I think first before it falls to form. So I had many years where I was practicing thinking better about myself, healing the unworthiness, healing the not good enoughness, healing the lack, correcting the mistakes and how I saw myself, such as just this body versus the soul that God created. And I went through so much inner healing that it allowed me to not just have these experiences happen and then be something in the past, but to allow these experiences to remain in the present, like to remain the filter with which I see the world through and which I see myself through. So it's been a constant daily practice to keep what happened in the past present so that I don't lose it. Right. So I don't forget that God is love and so am I. So that I don't forget that the loving powers of the universe align with love and service to others and not fear and getting and taking and smallness. Because if I actually thought about it, I was trying to go to be a teacher because I didn't believe that I could do anything else. And I was trying to be as small of a teacher as I could. I didn't want to be a professor. I more so wanted to be an ECE, which is like supporting those who are in childcare, right? And not that that's not a good thing or a bad thing at all. I just knew in my mind that was something that was because I was too afraid to ask for something more. I was too afraid to ask for something that would actually align with the bigness that I see in my mind for me and for all. Because let's get real, right? Like if we look out onto the world, there's so much suffering. There's so much pain. There's so much addiction. There's so much fear. There's so much uncertainty. There's so much idolatry. And so because of all of this, it seems like a massive feat to even think that anything out there can change. And so where I've realized my power and my certainty and my stability comes from is knowing that what I'm responsible for is not what's going on out there, but what's going on in here. And how I choose to perceive what's going on out there. So if I can learn to perceive what's going on out there through a filter of love, or what the A Course in Miracles calls the Holy Spirit, versus the filter of fear, which the A Course in Miracles calls the ego, then we literally can look on a completely different world. And this is where I believe that if I lean into my bro Jesus for a minute, when he was here and he would say things like, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, or the kingdom of heaven is spread upon this earth and you cannot yet see it. And I believe what he was saying is that through his own decisions for the spirit versus the temptations of his own ego, for example. He was able to witness to heaven, our home beyond this world that so many people who've had near-death experiences tap into and see and realize and can confirm for us. Thank you, everybody. What it does is this new shift in perception that shifts from fear to love allows the love to be the filter that we look through so that we can actually look on heaven reflected on this planet. And we can actually see the light in human beings instead of the darkness. And if we position our perception to look for the light in the world and to look for the light in our brothers and sisters everywhere, that is how the light is going to be recognized in us, is by us seeing it, because that's another law of the universe, right? As you give, you receive. So as I let myself see the world through a loving perspective, I'm more likely going to be able to see that love in others and see that love in our world, which will confirm to me the reality of heaven, which is not even a place we go to. It's a state of being. It's a state of mind, first and foremost. So I'm a really big believer of trying to take these big concepts that like Jesus first brought to us and so many spiritual teachers are so into and so many people who've had experiences tap into, and make it practical for the everyday human being, which is myself. I'm just an everyday human being trying to go through the struggles of life on earth, realizing how much life is so difficult for the majority of people and wanting to do the best that I can to help. And I've realized that the best thing that I can do to help is to help my own thinking, and to do so through my inner teacher, not trying to do it by myself, but doing it through inner guidance. And so what that looks like for me is taking time for what I call spiritual therapy, right? So you could do spiritual therapy with another therapist. Like I said, this is the work that I've been doing since the beginning. But you can also do it with your own spiritual teacher. That's how I've become such a good spiritual therapist, is because I've come into communion with my own spiritual teacher inside myself. So I know that the healing doesn't come from me, it comes through me. I've just allowed myself to be the vessel. So the way that we learn to be the vessel for healing so that we can receive healing and give healing is taking some time for spiritual therapy, which means sitting down in your chair and writing down questions that need answers, and refusing to answer those questions yourself, but instead to listen for what answer is going to rise to the answer of your questions. Kind of like I did at the beginning when I was like, what void am I trying to fill? And I saw you're afraid of failing. And then just keep asking, what am I afraid of failing at? Oh my God, it's everything. And you'll see the list. And the answers can come to you in words, like it does for me, or in pictures, like it does for me, or in intuition, like it does for me, or in downloads of knowing, which it does for me. It depends on the day, right? It also comes in confirmation through others, through signs, through synchronicities. So when you're opening up to guidance or opening up to spiritual therapy, open up to all the ways that the universe can communicate to you, not one way, many ways, so that it can come through in the way that you need it, customized to you in the moment. And some of the questions that really helped me to continue to undo the blocks to me fulfilling my purpose and coming centeredly into my purpose, which I am in now, was certain questions such as, what have I thought that God or love would not have me think? Big question. What have I thought that God would not have me think? Right. And when I did this work, what I realized is that I had thoughts of guilt, immense thoughts of guilt of the things that I had done in my past when I knew not what I was doing. I had immense shame for the things that I had done in the past when I knew not what I was doing. And so much shame, even when I was in my spiritual practice, helping others, when I wasn't fully healed in my relationship with food yet. And so I was still making mistakes, and I was still backpedaling sometimes. And I was still, trying to unravel my addictions and pains. Like I felt so much shame at that point. But what I learned in that is that shame is of the ego. Guilt is of the ego. If you're afraid of stepping into your purpose and fulfilling your purpose and what that means and what you're going to have to let go of, that fear that's running it is of the ego. It's not you. So what's helpful in that is to let that pass on by and remember what you're doing things for. We're not doing it for fear. We're doing it for love. We're doing it for love. And so what that does is it allows us to recognize the thoughts that we're thinking that God would not have us think, like the guilt and the shame and the fear and the blame. all of that stuff. And instead of feeling more guilty about it or feeling more shameful about it, we go, aha, I have a lesson to learn. I'm going to humble myself right now because I'm in earth school and we all got lessons to learn. And if we're not here healing, what are we doing? We're just like swimming around in a dream of fear. And so, what we need to recognize when we recognize those triggers in us or those thoughts that we have that God of love would not have us think is that there's correction for them. There's a correction for them. And we have an inner teacher who's going to correct them for us. It's not that we have to do it. We have to see it and we have to hand it over. So that's why sitting for spiritual therapy, asking the questions, hearing the answers, and then handing it over is everything. And then the next thought that you can ask after that is like, well, now that I see the thoughts that I've thought that God would not have me think, and I'm willing to let them be undone through the Spirit, one thought at a time, one day at a time, I'm also going to ask, what are the thoughts that I have not yet thought that God would have me think? What are the thoughts that I have not yet thought that God would have me think, that love would have me think? And this is then where we position ourselves to open to higher order thinking, to higher wisdom, to higher guidance, to higher perspectives of ourselves. And this is when we can start to sit in our meditation chair, ask these questions and listen and receive ideas like, oh, I am as God created me. Like if my creator created me, and my creator is love, then my creator must have created me as love. And if there is no opposite to the love that is the creator, then maybe there's no opposite to that in me, which means if I recognize an opposite to love in me, that really it's just a call to correction. Like it's a call to love. It's a call for me to return to the love that I am. It's not a call for me to feel more guilty and more bad and try and solve my problems through my addiction like I once did. It's a call to asking for help. It's a call to prayer for guidance. It's a call to, oh my God, I need to return to love because I don't feel loving right now, not toward myself or to another. And so I'm going to own that. Right. So this is a process of mind training that helps us to be accountable for mistakes, but also accountable for the thoughts of wisdom and reason that are going to carry us out of the mistakes into a place where we can see a new world and build a new world together and live in a new experience of life on earth. That's what I'm here for anyway. I'm here to experience and to demonstrate how it is that we can be in the world, but not of the world. And in my humble opinion, A Course in Miracles is the toolbook to that. It helped to lead to multiple spiritual experiences since that point that have predominantly been in the fundamental correction and healing of those addictions, of those sabotage ways, of the low self-esteem, low perspective, like uncertainty of purpose. Like A Course in Miracles has helped with all of that. And it's not just been for me, it's been in my relationships. Every relationship I have that surrounds me is having this healing be applied to it. Okay. That doesn't necessarily make it easy, but it's much more simple when you have a formula to follow. So to me, the formula is in the course, both for my inner healing, but also the healing that I want to extend through me to my friends and family and loved ones, and then ultimately to the world. So it's like the toolbook for everything. In my humble opinion, it doesn't have to be the path for everyone, but it's definitely been my path and the path that I encourage for others who want to know how to really do the nitty-gritty deep work of healing their mind, the nitty-gritty deep work of aligning and connecting with the powers and laws of this universe, and then ultimately the interconnection with our inner teacher that allows us to hear the guidance for what it is that we are and what it is that we're here for and what it is that we're supposed to do, right? So there's so much goodness that can come out of that. So where am I at with this now? I feel like where that kind of brings me in kind of leaning into a close of this conversation today is that what has helped me the most, I do believe, is consistency. And what's helped me with consistency is knowing my goal. What am I doing this for? Why am I even healing myself? Why am I wanting to see the world be different? Why am I wanting why? And when I've locked into why I'm doing this, the steps that I need to take to reach that why, to reach that goal have been more natural and effortless, right? So perhaps that's something that I inspire to the listeners today, that it's not only the introspection of what you're thinking that's out of accord with love and what you're thinking that could help you be in accord with love, but also why do you want to do that? Like, why do you want to heal and come in alignment with love? Like, what does that mean to you? What would that mean for those around you? And to really get into the deep uncovering of what your goal is, what your why is. And I found that when we have clarity on what our why is, we can start to wake up in the morning with purpose. We can start to wake up in the morning with a sense of meaning on our heart, but also through A Course in Miracles lens, that we realize that all meaning comes from knowing what we are. And what we are is God's child. And what we are is loved as God's child. And so, like, that is what all meaning is. And through that filter, we can see meaning on all things. But that's also why it's important for us to clear out our own meaning of things. Because I had my own meaning of myself, y'all. Myself was a good for nothing fat girl who was unworthy of love, who was not smart, who wasn't going to do anything in this world, who should just go hide out in the corner because she has nothing to offer. That was my perception of myself, right? That was my belief. But the only way that I could get to where I am now, which is owning the fact that I'm a child of God, which means that I'm created by the Creator, which means that I am a soul, which means that my soul is love and only love, which means my soul is also endowed with powers and with peace and with creativity and gifts and skills that can bless the world with miracles, right? I now see my power, but my power isn't in me alone. My power is because of who made me. Like, I did not create myself. I made that identity of myself, which was so small and so limited and causing so much pain and addiction and suffering in my life. But when I can relinquish my meaning on myself, when I can relinquish my identity that I made for myself and be willing to lay it down, the good and the bad, because I didn't know it was good from bad, from right, from wrong at that point. Like, I had no idea. So I'm like, I'm going to lay both sides down, just lay down both. What I realized happens when we lay down both sides is a new whole perspective of self comes forward. A new whole perspective of who I am and what I'm here for comes forward. But that true meaning can't come forward unless we let go of the current meaning that we have on things. So again, that's what A Course in Miracles is for me. It helps us to train our mind, undo our own sense of meaning so we can open to the collective shared meaning that we all have when we step into what we are as God created us and what we are meant to do here. And so I hope that this story of mine today helps to inspire you in some small way, maybe some big way, to really know that you are part of this ask and receive universe, and that you matter, and that you are worthy, and that you are enough. And that if you are willing to dedicate your time and your mind to training, to meditation, to spiritual therapy, to inner correction, inner listening, that you too can put down the baggage of the thoughts and the beliefs that are not true about you or others, so that you can really forgive them ultimately and come to a new clean slate of who you really are and what you're really here for, and the joy and the purpose and the meaning that comes from a true, authentic higher source that is trustworthy, and that we are so safe and guided when we're listening to that space and that love and that voice. So I hope it brings peace to your heart today, my friends. And if so, please reach out to me. I have many ways that you can reach out to me. First and foremost is on YouTube. I have my Miracles of Mind YouTube. Go check it out. I upload videos every Saturday, sometimes on Wednesday, reels all the time. And I would love to see you over there. So please come over there and subscribe to me. But then I also have my Miracles of Mind ministry, just miraclesofmind.ca. And you can come check out more about me, what I've done, who I am, and the things that I offer you, beautiful souls. And one thing that I'm going to mention about that is if you scroll to the bottom of the website, there's my newsletter. And every Friday, I do a question and answer where I can answer your questions, and I send you an email. And every Monday, I have a listen along email. It's kind of like a podcast that you can listen to or you can read that gets sent directly to your inbox to just help you on your spiritual journey and deepening the ideas that I talked about today. So feel free to reach out to me anytime. I look forward to connecting with you. I look forward to seeing you in my circle. And just thank you so much for your time in spending it with me today. I hope you are blessed and well and have a beautiful days and weeks and months and years ahead. Peace be with you.